Now they have been thrown in the prison, accused falsely. But they are coming out because now the king has a nightmare and nobody has an interpretation except them. So now they will come out and they won't harm anyone. Right now I have got just 35 minutes, which I probably already have stretched to 50. Therefore, I'm going over it a bit fast, and you may feel some bitterness in what I'm saying at some points. I apologize for that, and I assure you that it's not intended. When I will write these things, and that's why I'm taking time to write these, I shall try to show how this kind of integration brings more room for everyone, because that's the whole point. If we say that artists who think differently or who want to be in the slot of high literature, they are useless or they should be discouraged, then there will be no further progress. Just to give you a hint, do you know what was Arman was the movie which launched Wahid Murad as a hero. He wrote it himself. He was a writer, and his inspiration for the movies which he wrote came from something of high literature, from an artist who has been one of the most biggest obscurantists in literature, cut off from everyone, James Joyce. Wahid Murad was a die-hard Ulysses victim. It was a book which he had read and reread, and he lived in it. And once you watch the movies which he wrote, not the 125 in which he acted, only the 9 which he produced himself, and especially Ishara, which he wrote and directed himself, and which happens to be the only experiment in the stream of consciousness in mainstream cinema. Ishara. Those of you who are familiar with film art, forget Ishara. I had not seen it until a few months ago, although I'm a Wahid Murad fan for ages. Abdo knows here. It starts with subjective camera, which means the audience is entering the location, and the director speaks to you off screen, welcoming you into. He says, this is the world where I live, this is the room where I make pictures. तस्वीरें बनाता हूँ, pun intended, तस्वीर film को भी कहते थे उस ज़माने में. So it's a stream of consciousness kind of thing, but obviously it has Wahid Murad written all over it, not James Joyce. And it has Ibn Safi written all over it, and Dilip Kumar written all over it. What Joyce did was he took all these pieces from high literature and he put them together in a stream of consciousness. You find allusions to various books. That's what Wahid Murad did for the consensus literature in Ishara. He has these allusions to Indian films, to Pakistani films, to Ibn Safi. Strange connections. He has actually lifted a complete scene from Ibn Safi novel Bebakon Ki Talash and dramatized it. But what is even more weird, actually spooky, is that 5 years later, when Ibn Safi decided to make a film on one of his novels, out of 150 novels, he selected this one. So Dhamaka then becomes a reply to Ishara. And these are the things which we don't know. And that's why I'm saying that this is not like someone coming back with a vengeance and a moral agenda. This is based on, let's redefine what everybody likes, and then let everybody redefine their choices and whatever they like. So let me give you an example. We have heard a lot about Iqbal, but then again the problem with Iqbal was that he has until 2006 or 7 when I made a very bold and crazy attempt at reinterpreting Iqbal. He has normally been interpreted according to parameters which he denounced. He is a consensus artist who has only been interpreted according to the various schools of literary criticism which he did not like. He has never been interpreted from the perspective of someone who is just reading Iqbal for enjoyment and integrating things. He wrote, yes.
How does Iqbal fit into consensus when a lot of his writing was in Farsi and Farsi is not understood?
Okay. Thank you. That's a very interesting question, and it gives me chance to show off some of my research. He did not write anything in Persian for 15 years, for the first 15 years. So he already had a huge following among the masses when he started writing in Persian. He still wrote more Urdu poetry than any other Urdu poet of his caliber. His Urdu poetry is still bigger than, much larger than Ghalib. And Ghalib also wrote in Persian. It was common for poets in those days to write in Persian. So Ghalib also wrote in Persian. Mir wrote his autobiography in Persian. Acha, one thing. Secondly, his language. After 1936, Urdu has changed. When Iqbal was writing those poems, he was writing them in the language spoken in the streets. Let me give you an example. When I was doing my research on Iqbal, I saw some old magazines in which his poems were first published. None of them were literary magazines, so they carried these advertisements of quacks, of medicines which can cure all the diseases of the world, from headache to certain which I would rather not mention here. Okay, now obviously this advertisement is written to appeal to the masses, right? What's the heading of that advertisement? मैं कीमियागर हूँ. I am an alchemist. मैं कीमियागर हूँ. Now that would sound like Persian to us today, but it's the language of that advertisement. And then 20 years later, this phrase occurs in a couplet of Iqbal. मकामे गुफ्तगू क्या है अगर मैं कीमियागर हूँ. Right? So, third thing, very interesting. 1948, Shoresh Kashmiri is doing some research on the red light area. It's Iqbal Day, 21st April 1948. He goes to the red light area of Lahore and he writes that the ghazal that was being sung that day, उस पे मुजरा हो रहा था proper. नाच रही हैं कुछ ख़वातीन, कुछ गा रही हैं, पैसे लुटाए जा रहे हैं. इट वॉज निगाहे फ़क्र में शान सिकंदरी. क्या है? फ़कत निगाह से होता है फैसला दिल का. Probably for that couplet, but that. So if a poet is sung in red light area and he is also quoted on the pulpit of the mosque, and he is also being quoted by the communist who wants to bring about a revolution, that then makes him a consensus poet. And when he recites poems, if people throw money for charity, and these people are again the crowds, so that. Now Javed Nama, and he wrote these things in Persian, certain things, because the kind of things which he was wanted. After this, just you can think where else you disagree with me in these 3 minutes. Yes.
It makes me uncomfortable also.
Okay.
Normally, you would think it's a right-wing kind of view.
अच्छा, हाँ.
Maybe you can explain that a little bit. That's
Yes.
But you know, in 1965, Paul
it makes you uncomfortable
Yes.
now, but at that time it was. Poetry always does that. Like Mahmoud Darwish does now.
Yes.
Mahmoud Darwish
Yes.
does now in Pakistan. So you do need poetry to get
Yes.
a movement going.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It could have also been consciousness that was raised during the 65 war. It was the first onslaught on the country, after the partition, that kind of shook people and made them understand how vulnerable the country was. And I think that may have also sort of entered the kind of mainstream writings. These are all things we don't know about. We need to research, obviously. I mean, like you have